Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote in 1952, "If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root some unhealthy dependence and its consequent demand." Wilson suggested that if we could identify and continually surrender these unrealistic and unrealizable demands, that we may then be able to accomplish what he imagined to be the recovery's next frontier, something he called emotional sobriety. Flash forward 70 years and join psychotherapists and best-selling authors Tom Rutledge and Dr. Alan Berger, who have taken up the mantle of exploring Bill Wilson's new frontier. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the podcast. I'm Tom Rutledge, and with me is Dr. Alan Berger. You are my partner. We've become we were working together before, but we've become partners since COVID. Our improved relationship, and I don't mean improved qualitatively necessarily, although that's probably true too. But it's like we are really a good example of people who have taken a bad situation and found some blessings in it.
Yeah, so true, Tom. Is our relationship is deepened and expanded and as much, I consider you a close friend now.
Me too.
Before I didn't know what the hell to call you.
I was just coming to your evolution conference causing trouble. Yeah, it's like showing magic tricks and causing trouble. I'm still all that. I still am.
You're all that, but now you're from a much closer position.
and because of that, Patrick, I have you in my life, and I would not have had that before. You are a blessing to me. Yeah.
You're both blessings to me. And I thought I'd ask you guys, since you brought it up, any conclusions you guys have come to now that we're, what is this, year 2, year 3? All time seems to have taken on a strange dimension at this point. And, what would you say are the most profound lessons at this point about our capacity to adapt and to make gold out of crap?
Well, I think it's that we all need to pay close attention to the fact that we absolutely can do that. It's that this is not unique to, and it's not unique to huge worldwide crises. It's like, yeah, this is one of the great ventures of this has been that we've shared this together. But the other thing is, if we're doing what we talk about with emotional sobriety and applying this in the day to day, it's like the exact same principle. I was writing about this morning. It's like it always comes down to daily practice, and the idea is we translate this in. It's not. It's just, it really, there's some things that, simple, not easy, but it's this simple. It's not what happens. It's what you do with it. It's how you respond to it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're not, and when you say that, Tom, I know that doesn't mean that it's not stressful at times, that it's right. that people are getting burned out with this and being able to, to make all of these adaptations, and people long for the days. I remember that movie Soylent Green. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's I know.
that extended arm, it's like,
oh my God. There's a spinoff on that with that train movie. What's it called now? Oh God, it's really good too. It was, it'll come to me before we get off.
Mm-hmm.
But look, it's this thing. Everybody, all the people looking in the future saw us, having these crises around, let's say the poor air quality or, lack of resources and all those other things. And, who would have thunk it that we're like back in the Middle Ages with the plague, right? I mean, that it's really, a great threat to us are these viruses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are out there and dealing with them. And see, that's the other, so much psychology comes into this.
Yep.
It really does, doesn't it? In terms of there's still people, because of misinformation and our inclination to to pick up certain ideas that seem to appeal to us emotionally are thinking that this still was a hoax that was made up, right? That there's no reality to it. There's no such thing as COVID.
Right.
Now,
but the other thing is, you said dealing with it. It's like the other piece is about this. I mean, we can, one of the things I think is fascinating about what we do is, what we do, you and I talk about this quite a lot. It's like what we do with an individual client, we can take those same concepts, those same process concepts, and go all the way out to global communication, and they all still apply. It's like the truth, and this goes back to what we were talking about what the lesson is and all this stuff. It's how we respond. Well, as human beings as a whole, we respond horribly. We and not just in one particular way, but in lots of different ways. It's like the lesson, if we could figure this out in terms of learning how to respond to crises, as a population, as a worldwide population, but even that scares some people, because then they go, oh, you're talking about, a world government that's going to control us all. It's like,
right.
It's
so much.
I believe the clinical term for it is clusterfuck.
Yeah. Well, and listen, it really gets to this side of us where we're so suspicious of other people's motives and that those people with power are going to manipulate us. And look, I think that a lot of this stuff, first of all, is a projection, that people don't deal with their own abuse the way that they abuse power. So they project it into the government, or they project it into a lover or a friend or a partner and stuff. We know that projection is a very powerful dynamic. In fact, it was so interesting. I was talking about holding on to ourselves. So we're kind of following that discussion. And I did a workshop with Herb yesterday, and we were talking about optimal living and emotional sobriety. And then we did, first time ever, an extended question and answer over 2 hours. And so a lot of people come in with personal anecdotes, right? Well, how do I deal with this situation?
Yeah.
So this young lady says, God, I've really been working such a great program, and everything is, I got 8 years now, and I really feel good about the kind of person I'm becoming. And I'm in this really, really great relationship, except for he keeps complaining about things. He complains about how this one guy is driving on the road, or how somebody treated him at work and stuff like that. And I just can't stand it. I just can't stand all of his complaining. What do I do? Now, of course, the first response a lot of people have is they want to externalize it, right? And say, well, if you told him that you don't want to listen to it, and how much can you endure it? Is this the right relationship for you then? If he's complaining all the time, as though we're going to find someone that we're going to have this perfect fit with, and everything, there's going to be just, wonderful, wonderful relationship for the rest of our life, where we're not going to have any conflict.
As opposed to saying to this woman, so is that the extent of your complaint?
Yeah, well, that's one thing, is if that's what you're complaining about.
But it is a complaint. She's complaining.
She's doing the same thing that he's doing, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She's see that. You got it. I mean, but that's what I pointed out to her. I said, was there ever a point in your life where you behaved just like he did, where you were looking outside yourself and you were blaming everybody in the world for your problems? That if people would just behave the way they're supposed to, I would be okay. She says, of course. And I said, and how do you feel about that part of you that was behaving that way and felt that way? Well, I don't like it. I said, I could have told you that. I said, it's because you haven't made friends with that part of you that you're projecting it onto your boyfriend, and you can't stand him because you haven't come to peace with that part of yourself. You see, until I face my own demons there's going to be a tendency to project them onto other people.
Yeah.
If I don't see how unreasonable I am, I'm going to think Patrick's so unreasonable all the time, or Tom is unreasonable, or Jess, my wife, is unreasonable, or whomever is going to be in the sights of that projection, right? That's
Seems
what
like
we
you've
do.
given that some thought. It's like, never mind. It's
Yeah, Patrick's going, oh shit.
But also want to say what you did with that, because we're fans of questions are such powerful tools. It's like one question. Was there ever a time when you were like this? It's like, there's more conversation that you had, obviously, with her, but it's like that one question does this thing that we've been talking to people about that is so key to emotional sobriety, is take the interpersonal and bring it in and understand the version of it that is intrapersonal. It's like, it's not that you're not going to deal with the interpersonal, but you have to do this in the right order. You have inside out. If you think about growth, think about a seed. A growth does not happen from the outside in. The ripple effect. If you drop a pebble in a pond, it's like what would happen if you dropped the pebble and you saw the ripples coming from the outside? That doesn't happen. It emanates from inside, and that's what that's what you did with this. This one I want to hear more, but it's like with that one question. That's what I love about the precision of your work, is the idea that you find, and there's more. It's not. And by the way, for people listening, this doesn't mean, that's just the perfect right question. It's just, no, that's a good question. It's a question that helps direct somebody's attention. It's not like, you're wrong about how you're doing it. It's just like, I think I have a better way that's more effective. Yeah. And you asked that question, and immediately,
right.
He said, "Of course." She knew immediately. I love her response. Of course,
she started to get it, especially when I said the second part was, "Do you like that part of you?"
Yeah.
She's no. I mean, it was, and there was no apology for it. It was no. I don't like that part of me. I never did. But see, that becomes the issue. Now, if it was a therapy session, I would have gone beyond that. Then what we often do is then take that part and externalize it, externalize the conflict, have her talk to it, have her have the dialogue, have her now deal with that part of her. And then because it can't just be an intellectual exercise. I mean, that helped her. She was very, she was contemplative after that.
But this is how awareness. The way I put it is, and I was telling this to a client just last week. What happens? You come into therapy and your awareness increases, exponentially, and that fucks everything up. It's like it makes things. It gets, and she knew exactly what I was talking about. But even you're right. You have to do more with it. But even in it's the coolest thing in the world that even in just a couple of just showing somebody a little bit different perspective. It may, you and I both know, I'm sure we both have many stories like this. I might have to be cross paths with that particular lesson multiple times before, but every one of them counts, is what I finally realized. It's like I went back, and when I got sober and was sober for a year or so, I went back and found as many people as I could who thanked everybody who had ever had the guts to stand up to me and tell me something honest about my drinking. Because or about me just being irresponsible. It's like, because I wanted them to know, it's like, I did nothing with it. At the time, I was sure I was rude and I was bad, or at least ignored you. But I want you to know, as I look back on this now, it took, you chipped away at something. And so that's one of the things I want people to know, about even response with interpersonal stuff, is like, just say something. You don't have to change. We don't have to change things in ourselves or in other people immediately, but we do. We can't, because we can't control that, but we do influence each other. And we influence each other by chipping away, by just asking questions, saying our truth. That's right. And the kind of questions, and listen to this, because what we're not giving you a license to ask any questions, because some questions really are statements. So we're not saying they're rhetorical. Absolutely,
they are. So those are not. It's healthier to make the statement than ask the question. If Tom does something that I don't like, and I said, "Why did you do that?" I'm not interested in why he did it. I'm trying to say to him, "Hey, I think you're an idiot."
Yeah, and if you do ask me that, it should be, to actually want to know why I did it. It's like,
exactly.
And by the way, now I'll just do my part on being the class clown here for a moment and just say one of the fun things to do is to answer people's rhetorical questions. Why are you such an idiot? That's something I've given a lot of thought to. And it's like I think
that is disarming. You're talking about that is a way to hold on to yourself. If someone is upset with you about something, they say, God, why are you doing that? Say, God, I wonder too. It's like, I wonder about that myself. See, so that's disarming. There's no question that can be very helpful in the heat of a battle. No question.
Well, it's also what we do. It's also what we do in therapy a lot of times is we take those, we take those rhetorical questions and turn them into actual questions. They're good questions. Why? I use the example all the time of like, why am I such an idiot? You go like, well, that's an insult, isn't it? You go like, well, but you know what? If I use it as a problem solving tool, and so I say, let's change the question to what's something I could do today to be a little bit less of an idiot. Okay. That doesn't even push me too far. There's some humor in that, but there's some real truth to it. It's like, I'm not trying to talk myself out of a negative belief about myself all at once, but what I am trying to do is exactly what we're talking about at the outset about what lessons we get from COVID, which is it's that you can do something.
Yes.
We're not helpless.
That's right. That's exactly true.
I was telling you once, Alan, that to push back against my feelings of helplessness on a particularly bad COVID day, I just finally filled out the survey at Walgreens for how I liked my customer experience, which is probably going into the ether of nobody's ever going to see this thing. But I really did appreciate the kindness with which this essential worker treated me during a tense day. And I don't know, I'll read, I've got a lot of friends that are writers. I'll read the writing that I've got in my queue, and it's usually, or I'll make a sandwich. It's always I don't even know what to do with myself a lot of the times, but there's a lot of little footholds I can take, actions, right?
There's no question. All of that is speaking to this issue of holding on to yourself. Just let me return to this thing about really asking a question to know.
Yes.
See, that is good form in a relationship, is when you really, and this is going to go to our holding on to ourselves more. So let me tie it into that by first kind of stepping back a minute and saying there's two things that are incredibly important to do as we're trying to achieve emotional sobriety. One, we talk about this a lot. It's self-differentiation, self-maturity, self-evolution. So what we're striving for in order to have emotional sobriety is to have a solid, clear, and flexible sense of who we are. A solid, I'm Popeye the Sailor Man, right? I know who I am. I know my values. I know what's important to me. None of that is poured in concrete. I can change my opinion or change my values if some new information comes in that makes more sense for me. So I am still very adaptive and willing, right, to grow and change along certain lines that make sense. Being clear, I know my values. I try to operate with as much congruence, right? Which is much harmony to who I am, because I know when I'm in a state of disharmony, I'm out of integrity. So I really strive to try to keep all that together. That's self-differentiation, what we just talked about.
Well, so let me emphasize one little piece of that, though, because I think what you said is so important. Is that and I heard you make this point so many times, is the idea that congruence is how we establish congruence is integrity to me. And it's like the idea is you want to be sure, but you can't do what you're describing unless you know you don't have to know everything, because we never know everything, but you have to know who you are, so that otherwise what we're doing without thinking about it unconsciously is we're trying to be congruent to some other value system, some generalized value system, or somebody else's value system. It's like the part that sometimes is most difficult for people, especially people who have been really mean to themselves historically, is to value yourself enough to get in there and really know who you are and know that it matters. That's a lot of work, but it's like but when you do that, what you're saying is that, I mean, that is a position of emotional sobriety.
That's right. That is. So let's give an example of holding on to yourself with knowing yourself. So, let's say that I did something and I make a mistake, and let's say my wife says, my God, how could you make a mistake? That was stupid. Well, if I don't know that I'm stupid, I'm going to try to defend myself, right? Because now I can't have anybody think I'm stupid, because then I think they're not going to like me. Right. So by knowing that
you're going to launch the ridiculous defense that you're not stupid.
Right. I mean, I today I've accepted how stupid I can be at times, man. I do smart as I can be that stupid. So now that I accept it, I don't have to defend it. See, one of the things that happens when you get to this level, you are less defensive in relationships. You don't have to defend an ego or pride, because it's not based on some idea of who you're supposed to be.
Right. Oh, that's
it's so freeing, right? It's so freeing to just say, God, that was stupid. Now, I know, based on a lot of work I've had to do with myself, that just because I make mistakes, it doesn't make me a mistake. And see, that generalization or globalization that we do oftentimes because of our absolute thinking becomes devastating, fills me with shame when I would identify with my mistakes as though I should never make a mistake. Right.
But let's also add this in, though, because the other thing about that is, if in my case, it would be my wife telling me I'm stupid. The other part of holding on to myself is that, it is really nice if the truth is, I understand the truth is, I can get past it, don't have to have the defensiveness and know, oh, I was stupid. So I don't even have to agree with her. I do not have to think that. I do not have. If you ask me, if you hit the pause button and said, "Do you think this was stupid on your part?" and go like, "No, I actually don't," but I understand that she does, and I understand what her frustration is, and it's like that's part of that freedom too. Is the idea that I don't just because I disagree, I do not. It's such a powerful. People listen to this one because this one keeps. They just keep coming up. I think it's universal. Is the idea that each person I'm in any kind of conflict with, or each person I'm close to, has to understand me in great detail. It's like, no, they don't.
Yeah, they do not. That's another one of those unenforceable rules, right?
I want my wife to love me. I appreciate the fact that she loves me. I do not need her to understand me.
No. I just thought of another one of those great responses to that thing about, my God, I don't have to agree with her. They're thinking I'm stupid. Response would be, God, I see what you're saying, that for you it looks stupid, but from my side, there is so much great thought that goes into my stupidity.
It's a work of art, really. It's
a work of art for me. I didn't just hatch that egg. Trust me. I've been laboring over this thing, and it takes. Trust me, to be that stupid takes a lot of intelligence.
And by the way, thank you for noticing.
But see, we can play with this stuff. See, please listen to the fun we're having with it, because we don't need to make everything heavy, does it? Right? So we can be defenseless. We don't, or undefended might be the better way to say it.
Right. It's not,
we're not defenseless, we're undefended. Right. We're just undefended in a relationship, and we don't have to defend anything because we don't need. See, that's the other great thing about emotional sobriety. You get to a place in your maturity, you don't have to prove that you're a good guy, and you don't have to prove that you're not a bad guy. Both of those things become irrelevant They're irrelevant. It's not that I'm good or bad. I just am. I am what I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. That's
that goes to that thing I read that I had written the day of the last Thursday group about the living defensively, because you're trying to hold on to these certain ways of seeing yourself. Now you may think of it in somebody else's eyes, but you're spending just enormous amount of energy, or I was, and I have done that. And the client I was talking to when we came up with this one was doing that. But it's like what you also just said reminds me of what I would used to refer to as, and I don't know. I think women have they may have their own version of this, and I would leave it to them to explain it to us. But I know men have this white hat addiction. We have no tolerance. I do now, you do now, Patrick, I hope you do too. It's like, it's very good to have tolerance, to know that our hats are varying colors and varying shades of white and black and gray. But the truth is, there's a place where, without knowing it, I look back at my history. It's like, when I was being a complete ridiculous idiot and asshole, it's like, I still saw myself as the good guy, because I was absolutely addicted to being the good guy. I had to be seen as the guy. In our day was the emerging sensitive male. I was the guy who understood things. I was the guy who was not the stereotypical male asshole. So
right,
I was.
If we weren't the good guy, what would that mean, right? And the fear.
Yeah, it would mean all is lost. Yes, it's one of those all or none. Our fears. Don't you think, Alan, that our fears are like often in that form, at least the neurotic fears that we have is it's like, if you basically you lose, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. Okay. Why? Well, if you lose your job, well, I'm afraid my wife will leave me. Okay. Well, okay. If your wife leaves you, what happens? Well, I'm afraid that I'll be out in the street. It's like, what if you're out in the street, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to relapse into my addiction. Okay. If you do, I'm going to die. So it's like 4 or 5 rungs down the ladder, you're dead. No wonder we're so afraid of everything, because it all leads to just our destruction.
That's that catastrophic expectations, right?
Yes.
We just run down that road, and I like to call it awfulizing. We just awfulize the hell out of things, man. And that's like you said, anxiety does that. Anxiety is an awfulizing generator. I mean, it really is.
And what we do is try to help people. We've done it with ourselves, but we also help other people to track that down, to take it down there. So that first, it does 2 things. One is it validates you. It's like, because a lot of times people will feel like they're, I call it the illusion of overreaction. They'll feel like, why am I this scared of this thing? It's like, oh, well, I can show you, and then you take them down that little process, that little progression of if this, then this, then this. And you go like, see, your fear is not actually of getting in trouble at your job today. Your fear is of dying. And in the process, you're going to lose your life, your livelihood, and your wife, and all this other stuff. It's like, but so that's part of compassion. Oh, no wonder there's no such thing when we buy into that awfulizing guy in your head, like you talk about, is like there's no middle ground. There's not a little fear. A little fear is a good fear. It's like it'll guide us. You're right. It's like everything is terrifying.
In every case, being emotionally upset, anxious, depressed involves the kind of thinking that Tom is just describing. It's overgeneralizing.
Yes.
Right? It's globalizing, overgeneralizing, right? We go from I'm not to I make a mistake to I'm a mistake. Go from this I'm having trouble right now to I'm stupid. See, it's always that leap up to that higher abstraction, that absolute nature, right? So we don't think in terms of this continuum and put things on a gradient, right? We don't think that way. When we're undifferentiated, our thinking will be very, very absolute or black and white.
Right.
And look, that becomes, a whole psychotherapy system was based on that. Albert Ellis, rational emotive therapy. He looked at all the cognitive errors that a person was making, and he would slam them. I mean, he was great at challenging. Yeah, he was great at challenging people with that stuff.
Did that work?
Look, all what we're talking about. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, no. I mean, smashing people's cognitive dissonance. I mean, because if you tell somebody they're being irrational, I mean, they don't stop being irrational.
He wouldn't tell them they're being irrational. He would just point out how absurd they were. Is what he would do.
Here's what. Well, this is a fun part though. Because to answer your question, would it work? It's like first answer is yes, it works if you're Albert Ellis. It's like now I can tell you because that's one of the things we have to learn in our education process is when I was trying to be Albert Ellis, when I was that's part of how we learn. I was trying to emulate Albert Ellis. You know my personality. It's like so I tried on Albert Ellis. It didn't work for me. It just it made everybody uncomfortable. But it's like, but it's a lot of times those guys didn't actually factor in and even talk about a lot of times about their own personality of how, how many you've gotten this feedback. I know you have. I've gotten it a lot. If people who work with me sometimes will say like, you get away with saying some shit that other people wouldn't get away with. And usually it's about making fun of people and making jokes and stuff like that. And it's like, and I'm doing it with good-hearted fun. I always tell my clients, it's like, I will never shame you. And they get that. I will always make fun of you. It's like, and that's playful. And it's like, and no, if you're, I always tell people, you've heard me say that in our training workshops, like, if find your own way, because, if you're not goofy, you don't need to do therapy like me, if you're not smart and don't line those, not in the Alan Berger form of what I think of smart is able to make basically put these puzzles together in rapid fire, succession. It's like, don't try to do it that way. Do it another way.
Do it your way.
Yeah.
Do it your way.
Yeah.
And I love that about you, by the way. I think that's, to me, just a gift that when we do trainings together that you really give people is really, and we even say that in the description we had to it. We're here to help you find your path as a therapist.
I know.
And I love that because we really do that and we're open that, we don't have a way. We have our way and we can help you find your way. But there's no the way. I mean, there's the way. There's no the way. There's a lot of different paths. But let's go back now. So what I've been describing up to this point is self-differentiation. And this is very important, holding on to yourself, is that I have a sense of who I am. So then if somebody says something that's important, that someone that's important to me says something, what they're saying is something that, let's say, like I gave an example before, they're critical of me in some way. If I'm holding on to myself, that's not defining me. See, I am not defined by the limited perceptions that other people have of me. And Jess helped me with this one thing too, is that, I had this situation, a professional situation with some people I was doing some consulting with, and they decided to stop our relationship for various reasons. And Jess said, Alan, you know who you are, and you have all this information about who you are and how you've lived your life and dealt with your mistakes. They don't have that. They don't see all that So they're basing it on their limited perceptions of you. And that thought was very helpful in terms of now doing the second thing I want to talk about, differentiating ourselves from others. So differentiation involves self-differentiation, what we just talked about, having a clear sense of who you are, being solid in who you are, being adaptive, flexible, all these things that Tom and I were just, talking about. The other side of this is the other differentiation, is having the ability to see people as they are, not as we project onto them that we need them to be. So this becomes such a critical part of this whole process, is to be able to now see the other person as they are, not as a projection of me. So what we say is this comes to not taking things personally. Other differentiation involves, in Al-Anon, they call it Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. Quit taking it personally. Q-tips. Keep Q-tips around. You need them all the time. Not just to clear the wax out of your ear, but to clear the undifferentiation out of your head. I mean, see, that's the way I think about it. So now if I step back and I stop taking it personally, I can ask the question. This is where the question becomes very important. Yeah. I can now make an inquiry into, wow, what does what happened just mean to that person that they are reacting the way they're reacting? So I can now get to know who they are instead of seeing them as a reflection of me.
It's perfect. It's what you're doing is the way I love it, and I've heard it said is you're not using yourself as the standard of measure for everybody else.
That's right. That's right.
It's like, and if you think you don't do that, you're wrong. I mean, we say like, I can't believe, whenever you say, I can't believe somebody did that, you go like, no, all you're saying there is, I don't believe that in that situation, I would have done that. It's like, so the idea is what you're talking about is a very specific tool in not taking, because it's one thing to get the concept of not taking something personally, but I love the practicality of that, because what you're saying is no, I need to clear that out. So what's going to be you're also describing what's going to be the signs of progress. Well, the sign of progress is there's room for curiosity, which is something you talk about all the time. There's room for curiosity about, now I don't know, since I don't know how that person is seeing what they're seeing or what it looks like from their perspective, I can now become curious about it. That's genuine empathy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's where that goes. That's great that you connected that, because my job at having that inquiring mind and asking those questions, wow, what does it mean to them that they're reacting this way? I'm doing that to get to a point of being able to understand and have compassion for what their journey is, for what their issues and patterns and paths that they're taking in their life is. And it's not about me. See, that's the big thing, is that this whole thing, this differentiating ourselves, moves us away from a very, very self-centered consciousness, which says it's all about me. It's a consciousness that emphasizes our personal importance, to a consciousness that lets go of that idea and now is fused with and infused with empathy and with humility, realizing it's which means there's a low focus on self. If I have some humility, I'm not making everything about me.
See, and that's perfect. I love this because what you just said. I mean, this is a good tennis match because it goes back, or just tennis volley. It's like, because it comes over here and I go like, okay, because I can certainly remember times or imagine myself in a situation, and know other people can do this, is where I appear to have that curiosity about somebody else in a conversation, but it's still about me. Because what I'm doing at that point is I'm still in debate mode. I'm not in receptive mode. I'm not having a conversation to convey and to receive information. I'm in a conversation to win. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try genuine curiosity to learn more about what you're thinking. And I'm scanning for targets. I'm looking for ways I'm going to shoot down your perspective. But it's like, it's going to appear to be absolute genuine curiosity and respect, but it's not. Now, I'm not even saying there's not a place for that kind of conversation, because in debate there really is. I mean, we do that in something that is formally a debate. It's like, but with the kind of conversation you're talking about, which is what emotional sobriety is, to move us into a place where, the twist in the story is, oh, by the way, what's the twist? Oh, the twist is, this is not all about me.
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't see it coming.
And that adding that to your consciousness, being able to get there, being able to have that aha moment that, oh my God, I'm taking this personal. What happens if I switch now and start to look at the other person and see that it's not about me, This is telling me who they are, not how they feel about me. If I can switch that, amazing things start to happen. It helps you get to the undefended position, because you're not sitting there having to deal with your anxiety that they might not love you because of what they're saying. They're just struggling with their feelings. And how they struggle with their feelings is how they struggle with their feelings. That's not something that they're doing because of you. They're doing that because of them. That's who they are. That's how they're coping with life. And when you take it personally, you lose sight of the other person completely. Yes. As soon as you take it personal.
Okay.
And
in the book,
you cannot hold on to yourself.
Okay. Do you use the term undefended in your book?
I'm not so sure I did.
Okay. Because what I just got out of that was, and we'll put it in the book we're working on. It's like undefended versus defenseless. You said, you corrected yourself earlier when you said defenseless, because that didn't work, because that brings we're talking about vulnerability, but the word defenseless brings about a connotation of vulnerability that seems very, very dangerous and unnecessary. Undefended. Right. Undefended. Why are you undefended? I love that. Undefended is not defenseless. It's just because if I'm undefended, you go like, well, where are your defenses? I go like, oh, they're right over there in the corner. I got them in those boxes right there. I've got them if I need them. Because, the idea that we all deserve to defend ourselves. We can be, all defenses are not bad. It's how what we learn to do is apply them appropriately. And in the relationship stuff, when you're talking about differentiating yourself from other people, and maybe I should have gotten this particular light bulb that's above my head right now before, but it's like, it's just, for some reason, I'm just now getting that as I'm listening to you talk about this and it's wonderful. It's like, it's a relief. It's a breath. It's like, oh, I don't have anything I need to defend.
Yeah.
And it relieves me available to the relationship. Now I can just be here with you in the relationship.
Nothing I need to do. I love that.
We're just hanging out, man. We're fine.
That's right. And then the relationships become less scary because there's nothing at risk. You're not putting, see what happens a lot of times if my sense of self is not integrated, is not differentiated, then what happens is I'm so fragile. And now I'm dependent on you treating me a certain way for me to be okay. And see, now comes all the unenforceable rules. I have to generate all these rules on how you're supposed to talk to me, how you're supposed to behave with me, how you're supposed to think about me. If I show up, you can't be doing anything else. You must be thinking, sitting there saying, what do I need? So if you're not thinking about me all the time, I get offense, like you don't love me. See, these are the crazy rules that we generate. And
I wrote the interpersonal has to, I can't read my own handwriting. I just wrote it. Has to compensate for our intrapersonal shortcomings.
That's right.
It won't work, but it's what we're doing.
We impose on the interpersonal these rules to make us feel okay, to make us feel safe, to make us feel loved, to make us feel all the things that we're not experiencing.
And so people always asking definition of emotional sobriety, and it's not difficult because there's just a lot of definition. There's a lot that defines it, but that's a beautifully nutshell kind of definition is that I am safe. I am safe and undefended and available, and that's the emotional sober person. It's like. And not only is that I'm those people, and we know those people naturally. I mean, hopefully we become those people more and more as we move along in our own lives. But I've known people like that are just naturally that way. What do we say about those people? Well, we say they're wise. And the other thing is we love being in their company. It's like right on. And they don't even have to put words to it. We just like being around those people.
Yep.
Because they're safe.
So, we're back to this subject, right? Is that holding on to yourself is hopefully today, as you've listened to this podcast, you see that there's two areas to work on here. Self-differentiation, other differentiation. Self-differentiation helps you be clear about who you are, that that get clear of your values, get clear of what's important to you. When you're self-differentiated, you live your life based on I want to or I don't. It's truly being an adult. And when you're an adult, there's only two reasons to do something, because you want to or you don't. People don't get this, is they want to come back to me whenever I say this. They want to debate it, Tom. Well, listen,
I know.
You're being impractical, Dr. Berger. This is that Ivy Tower stuff that you're living with about these ideas, and a lot of us have to do a lot of things we don't want to do. And my response to that is, I feel sorry for you, because I don't. There's not a thing I do in my life that I don't want to do. He said, well, how the hell do you do that? I says, because if I'm confronted with something, like a guy says, well, you got to go to work, don't you? I said, no, you don't have to go to work. If you want to get a paycheck and you got a job, go to work. But don't turn it into I don't want to. Say,
own it that you're choosing. No, I'll tell you an example. We have quite a few followers and listeners who have eating disorders. I use this a lot with people, especially with people with restrictive eating disorders. And it's like we'll say, they live in absolute terror of gaining weight and all that means to them. And it's a literal, very terrifying thing. It's, but the idea is, if they're in a place where weight gain is going to be a part of the process, and we don't focus on the weight, but we do focus on fears. And so if that's the case, I'll say, well, you know that you want to, if I know somebody's committed to their recovery, I'll say, you want to gain weight, and this is a little bit of a trick. I mean, she goes, no. I don't. I go like, well, do you want recovery? And she says, yeah. And I said, well, tell me some more about recovery you want. And it's like, and that's involving more, you have to eat a certain amount of food, that kind of stuff. And that's not, there's a lot more recovery than that, but you have to do that. And when you eat, this is science, when you eat, you're going to gain some weight because you've been told by medical people and nutritionists that you're basically, your body's going to put on some weight. Well, yeah, it's like you want recovery. It's like, therefore you want to gain weight. It's like, it's just, and I just know that from people having conversations like that with me, it helps just to confuse me a little bit and make me look at the complexities of that, because that want thing is no, you're making choices. I think Viktor Frankl talks about this is it's Carl Rogers. I was rereading on Becoming a Person, and he's talking about the choices are about weighing out values. It's like, I want, yes, I don't want to go to work, but I do want to feel to feed my family. So I want to go to work. It's like,
I want to go to work. So what I say is, if you're confronted with an I don't want to, wrestle with it. Don't just respond to it automatically and do it and then resent it or be bitter about it. See if you can chew it up and get to the I want to. The more you live based on I want to, I don't want to, the more emotional sobriety you will have in your life.
That is, Alan, that by itself, that is beautiful. That, because I had this image, I just put this little story in my head when you said that. So, I'm always thinking about the committee in the conference room inside my head. And so I'm the guy, and I'm the guy who's in charge. I'm the one, there's lots of me in there, but I make the choices. I make the decisions. It's, so one of my guys comes to the office door and knocks on the door and says, I don't want to do something. I don't want to do this. And so in my old days, I would have got up, gone out and started a fight with him, or barred the door, blacked out the windows, all this other stuff. And instead, when I listened to you just then, I let him, it just happened naturally. I let him in, he came in and sat down, and I say, well, tell me about it. It's like, that's just good management.
That's right.
That's being a good boss. It's like, tell me about it. Let's go with that. And it's like, that just happened naturally when you said that. That's the Alan Berger.
That's what it is about. Is we're getting to a place where we can bring these disharmonious aspects of ourselves into harmony so that they can become joint contributors. What you just did was made that part of you a collaborator, right? It is
Well,
collaborate.
undefended. I was not defended. I did not take up my defenses against myself.
That's right. There you go. Right on. So
That's
please
beautiful.
listen to that. Please listen to that. So that's the self-differentiation. And that helps us hold on to ourselves. The other differentiation is working hard to remind yourself about this personal importance that we all carry with us. That low focus on self is what humility is. And so when we start to take it personal, stop for a minute and say, what if I start looking at this? If I change the way I'm looking at what's going on is not about that they're telling me about what an idiot I am or how upset they are with me. But if I understand that this is how they're dealing with their feelings, this is about them. It's not about me. That's other differentiation. That's going to go a long way to holding on to yourself.
Yes.
Okay. And look, and all this stuff that we're talking about is how to keep your emotional center of gravity over your 2 feet. The more you learn to do that, the less you have to modulate, regulate, and control other people.
Right.
Because
and much of it,
irrelevant.
right. And much of it is in, don't forget, we're talking about Alan's book, 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. Much of it's in there. And I'm sitting there taking notes because we're working on another book and whatever's not in there is going to be in the next one. So
that's right.
Let me ask you if I've got something right. I kind of was in class today with you and I took some good notes. It's like self-differentiation makes differentiating from others possible.
Right on. True.
Is that true? Okay. I'm going to say it again. Self-differentiation makes differentiation with others possible. In other words, that's a restatement of what we say all the time, the inside out. We have to go in here first. That's why going on Thursday night, going back through the 12 steps with the lens of emotional sobriety has been one of the reasons it's been so useful is because we look at that from a point of view of how has my treating myself so badly internally had an impact on my relationships with other people.
Before we wrap up today, I wanted to remind our audience that Valentine's Day is on the way, and Tom has a piece of writing that I think would really benefit those celebrating the holiday with a loved one.
Oh, thanks for doing that, Patrick. It's actually I have a book called What Love Is. It's I usually have a copy of it right here somewhere. I don't know. I don't think we're on video, but if you are, there's the copy, a picture of my young self. It's I love to tell the story real quickly of how that book came to be because it really is a Valentine. It's like a Valentine in a small gift book. I was asked by some people who were putting together a basket, a Valentine's packet for, I think it was for Walmart or some big chain. And they were, and this was a musician here in Nashville. And then she had a CD with it. And there was a bunch of other little gifts in there that we're going to do. And they had this man who was writing this book for them to go with it, a little gift book. And the guy kind of disappeared. He wasn't going to do it. So they asked me to if I could write it. And I said, yeah, I could do that. And so I had been working on a book for a while called Clues for the Clueless, which, Alan, you can imagine how much women had asked me to do that. And it really was specifically for, idiot men. And I took that and I expanded into this so that hopefully, I think for women buying this for their husbands or boyfriend, I want you to know the clues are still in here. Yeah. But as it turned out to be something I did off the cuff and in one of my favorite projects, actually, I call it a coffee table book. Somebody said that her husband accidentally read it because she left it in the bathroom. So it's bathroom book, whatever. It's like, so it's called What Love Is. It's available at Amazon. And I think it makes a nice Valentine gift. So thanks.
It's a great book.
Thanks for,
I have read that book and I would strongly encourage you to read it.
Oh,
it's very, very good. It's Tom Rutledge at his best, giving you nutshells, which are so valuable in terms of getting you to be reflective, contemplative, even things to take into meditation. I mean, there's great
Thank you, Alan.
nutshell.
Well, it's also it's practical. I think one of the things when the editing was looking at it, there's one line in the introduction that says it's one thing to say you'll give your right arm for somebody, but it's quite another to deliver. Now that was my favorite sentence. It still is the favorite sentence in the whole thing. And they said we need to take that out because that seems kind of violent. I said, no, well, I'm really good at being edited, but I thought, no, we're not taking that line out because that's what people need to get about relationship is like, no, this being in a relationship and being healthy in a relationship means delivering. Thank you for asking about that. And thank you, Alan, for those kind words.
Sure. And before we let Alan go, and by the way, I'm just so stoked for you that you get to have this tennis event today because you strike me as the type who doesn't have a lot of me time. So happy for you.
It's a very important day in the world of tennis because Rafael Nadal, who's just a phenomenal player, currently holds 20 Grand Slam titles with Roger Federer. He's equal to Roger Federer and to Novak Djokovic. And he is playing for his 21st title today.
Oh, wow. And
if he does this, I mean, first of all, nobody thought they would surpass Pete Sampras. I forget what Pete has, 14 or 16. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's 14. And nobody thought anybody'd ever get that many. It was like that seemed out of way. Now we're up in the 20s. And Nadal is a class act. He's a humble guy. I'm pulling for him today. Medvedev's a great guy too, man. He's really bringing a different brand of tennis into the world. It's an exciting era in tennis, but it'll be a great match. I know that it'll be an epic match today.
Great.
Awesome. Enjoy. And then next week we'll be airing Tom's chat with Jefferson Ross. He provides the music for our show, and you're going to get to meet him. And
he's cool. Did you liked him? Did you?
He's awesome. Yeah, and I can't wait to listen to the whole album too. I hit him up, and I'm going to get a CD at some point.
Yeah.
And then after that, I suppose we'll be diving into the final chapter of Alan's book about paddling your own canoe. So I'm very excited to get into that with you guys.
Sounds good. All right, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Tend your life. Tend your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.